It's become an all too familiar scene, family and friends laying to rest a fallen Australian soldier from the conflict in Afghanistan. Private Grant Kirby from Brisbane's 6 RAR was farewelled with full military honours today. His unit has borne the brunt of what's been the bloodiest year for the Australian Army since 1971 during the Vietnam War. Francine Norton reports on a grieving military community and the renewed spotlight it shone on Legacy Week.
Did you get my message? Did you get my thing about paying for the parts for the bike?
No.
More than 11,000 kilometres separate them, but distance is no barrier to Shana and Jason Moriarty.
What are you up to today?
We're going to go over and see A&A and do some training with them, and do some stuff for them, and then one of the A&A guides, so we're going to do a ramp ceremony for them.
It's the tough reality of life right now for Jason Moriarty, a warrant officer who's been with 6 RAR in Afghanistan since February, working as a mentor to the National Army. For his wife and 4 daughters back home in Brisbane, news of more Australian soldiers' deaths is too close for comfort.
It's devastating. But I guess the first thing that does go through your mind is relief that it's not Jason, and I mean that might sound selfish, but that's the way you have to think, because he's still over there, he's still doing that. You can't let yourself get too emotional about it. You sort of have to distance yourself from it to be able to cope with it.
Shana Moriarty believes keeping busy is the best strategy.
Not watching on the telly, not focus too much on what has happened, and not let yourself think emotionally about their families and that sort of thing, because I don't think you could cope thinking about all that all the time.
But it's hard to ignore the deaths of 10 Australian soldiers since June. Private Grant Kirby is the latest to be farewelled in Brisbane by his family and friends, but he's not the last. On the 20th of August, Private Kirby, along with Private Thomas Dale, were killed by a roadside bomb in the Baluchi Valley. He was known as Dad to the troops. He was also dad to 2 young daughters. Military chaplain Gary Stone knows the Kirby family well and conducted the service.
The fundamental sort of theme we would sort of come up with is one of hope. You know, that despite the tragedy of this case of Grant's death, that we believe in eternal life, that we believe that he lives again, he lives on in a spiritual form, that at the point of death his soul left his body and has gone to be with God in heaven. So my role as a minister in the church is to affirm people in that, affirm people of that hope of eternal life.
6 Brisbane-based soldiers are among the latest casualties, including 4 from the 6th Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment. For veterans of the 6 RAR Brotherhood, it stirred up ghosts.
It's fresh in everybody's mind of what's occurred, and particularly with the 6 RAR guys, that 4 of them in the last month, and that's really struck home.
You know, when you hear of another death in Afghanistan, it's one of our 6 Battalion blokes, you tend to think back to, we had the same thing years ago, and it touches you very deeply, because we feel, especially for the families and for the mates that are still over there trying to do the job or doing the job. And yeah, it can become very emotional.
Six RAR has a proud history. It was formed in the Vietnam War and in the Battle of Long Tan earned a US presidential citation. 61 members of the battalion were killed in both tours. Since then, there have been deployments to East Timor and the Solomons, Iraq and now Afghanistan. The men who've been on the front line are a warrior class, and the bonds run deep.
We're all part of a family, and we're all part of the defence family. But with the regiment, the Royal Australian Regiment is something a little bit more, in that we're the infantry component of the Australia's force deployments, and therefore we are the men that are in close contact with the enemy. So that builds up a real spirit of caring for each other, and that spirit is something that we hold very dear.
Those who fought the wars of yesteryear can see similarities to the modern battleground.
Back in Vietnam, you didn't know who was good and who was bad. By daytime, they could be just villagers, and by night they'd come out and be Viet Cong. And the same thing today. They'll detonate an explosive device and filter back into the village, and you can't tell who's on whose side. So I can't see that there's that much difference. We're still patrolling, looking for mines and bombs, and unfortunately still finding them the bad way.
For the partners and children, those who've made the ultimate sacrifice for their country leave behind an everlasting void. The volunteer organisation Legacy says it is its role to make life a little easier.
The children, you know, is where Legacy really started back in 1923, looking after the children who were left without a parent, and that remains our primary focus. But you can't look after the children without also looking after the surviving parent.
Legacy helps more than 110,000 widows, children and dependents. These women lost their husbands who fought in World War II, Korea and Vietnam. Here at Legacy, they're making wreaths to sell to the RSL. It's their way of giving back. It's also a chance to meet up every week to relax, have a chat, or even learn new skills to keep in touch with family.
There is always that financial assistance there when it's needed, but a lot of the other support is by allowing the families the opportunity to get on with those things that they, you know, might forego given their circumstances. With the children, helping with education, you know, providing access or ensuring that they have access to a range of co-curricular type activities that they might not have the money now to deal with.
Vietnam vet Glenn Willman is a legatee in the Caboolture area north of Brisbane. He's seeing the demands on the organisation rise as it goes through an era of change.
The men are ageing. They're sort of the youngest now will be in their mid-80s to late 80s, anywhere from there up to 98, 99, 100. And of course, it's unfortunate they're passing on, and that gives us a lot more widows. And I'd say on average, per month we would have, to move into the area where I am, between 11 and 13 new widows every month.
Teresa McKinnon and her daughter Jamie were left struggling to cope with the loss of their husband and father 6 years ago. Jim McKinnon was a patriotic man. He served in the Middle East and was shot at Kokoda. Since his passing, Legacy has become part of the McKinnon family.
They are great help. Without them, it would be very hard for me because I don't have a family around here or my family in New Guinea. And Legacy are great support to me.
If not like stressful and difficult, like that's probably putting it lightly. Like I probably wouldn't be going to university because, well, we wouldn't be able to afford it. And I'd be a lot more worried about Mum a lot more of the time.
Back at the Gallipoli Army Barracks at Enoggera, the hum of the passing trucks doesn't disturb the tranquility of the National Memorial Walk. It's a living monument to the men killed overseas while serving with the Royal Australian Regiment, and it's laid out in operational theatres, dating back to the RAR's formation in 1948. There are 695 plaques already here. Soon there'll be 4 more. Members of the RAR Association inspect the area set aside for the next members of this spiritual home.
War is a killing experience, and that you go there with an expectation that casualties will occur.
And it is sad to think that there's going to be more. If not in this war, then in the next one.
If or when that happens, they will be remembered.
Francine Norton reporting there, and Legacy Week continues this weekend.